Hey class, my name is Emily Lichtenberger, and this PowerPoint presentation is on the case study 10.4 in our reading from our book this week. This case study is the case study of the transferred employee. So before I go into my PowerPoint to answer the questions that were asked of us, I want to give a little bit of background to the issue and kind of what was going on there. So the background of this case study, I received an employee 60 days ago that was transferred from another department. So this would be what we call an interdepartmental transfer. So this employee came to me and handed me their performance evaluation. I, as the manager, was under the impression that all employees that were transferring were to have their evaluation completed before their transfer. When I found out that this current employee did not have their performance evaluation completed, I approached the previous supervisor of the transferred employee. The previous supervisor stated that I need to fill the evaluation out and that no one from HR told her that they did not tell her to complete it, or that they did tell her to complete it before the employee's transfer. I quote part of this case study in here. This previous supervisor had stated writing a performance appraisal 9 days after it is due will trigger a quote unquote red flag with HR, which may look negative on the transferring supervisor. I then approached my supervisor, my one up, asking for guidance. I gave my supervisor the background of the situation and the conversation that I had with the transfer supervisor, and my supervisor suggested that I change the date on the employee's internal transfer documents and that I fill out the performance evaluation when appropriate. In the meantime, my supervisor will then speak with the transferring supervisor to ensure she did the 12-month evaluation. He further goes on to tell me to shred the documents the employee gave me and create new documents with the new date. I then reached out to legal, and legal then stated that my supervisor is correct. It is not illegal to change the documents if changing the date is correct. A previous supervisor results is to correct a previous supervisor's mistake. Legal tells me I should go back to my supervisor if I still have an issue. So for the first question we were asked for this case study is, what would you do in this situation? Would you change the documents and or would you go back and confront your supervisor? So I have a list of things that I would do, and I'm going to kind of explain each of them as they pertain to kind of what I would do as the manager leader of this employee and under these circumstances. So when in doubt, partner with human resources. One of my previous bosses, and he's actually my current boss now, has always told me, always partner with HR, even if you know what to do in any situation. You always want HR to be in your corner, and collaborating with them keeps a positive rapport and ensures you are covered as a manager if anyone were to come back and retaliate. In this field of healthcare administration, you can say one thing to an employee and have to say another thing to another employee, and just partnering with HR is best practice when it comes to being a leader and guiding your team. Especially if you're a new manager, partner with them, ask the questions. They are more than happy to assist in those kind of situations. Number two, no. I would not change the documents until I receive further clarification on the policy and procedures around employee performance evaluations. Every healthcare organization that is accredited by the Joint Commission has to have policy and procedures. Even if you're not accredited by the Joint Commission, you are accredited by some sort of accreditation. And there are specific policy and procedures that you must abide by throughout all of your outpatient practices, inpatient practices, physician's office. So what I would do to review this is we have a great online portal at our healthcare organization, and it's our Compliance 360 is what it's called. I would speak with our ACC, which is our Advice and Counsel Committee. They give a lot of great feedback, how terminations work, employee issues. They provide education material for employees, HIPAA education, all the things. So I would partner with them. And then if there is a quality issue, I would collaborate with the quality department as well to make sure that my P's and Q's are good, my T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and see what we need to do from that aspect. With this, it's not a quality issue. However, it is a human resource issue. So I would still go to the ACC policy and procedures, review all of those, and then I would still collaborate with HR to make sure I fully understood the policy and knew what I was doing before I changed documentation. In the healthcare field, we have to live and breathe that if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So as long as you have documentation that's going to help back you up and, make sure that everybody trusts you, and build that rapport with your employees. For the third one, I would use, when it comes to talking to my supervisor, I would use my crucial conversation skills, and have a touch base with my supervisor to ensure he's aware of the steps that I'm taking, why I'm taking them, and then the policy after I've completed my research. If he is right, then he's right. And if that's the policy, that is the policy. For the fourth one, 5 why. When in doubt, 5 why. One aspect that this case study did not use was the 5 why scenario. I think it is extremely important, especially if you're a new leader, you're new to the organization, or even if you're a seasoned leader. It's okay to ask the question why. Don't ever be afraid to ask why, because learning from other leaders so you can be the best leader that you can be, that's called being a continuous leader, or a continuous learner. You want to continue to learn, even if you feel like you're in the right, but you might be in the wrong. You always want to learn, because you might have another employee that comes through your doors and you have to do that as well. Even if it's someone higher up on the totem pole than you, it is 100% okay to push back, and you push back in a professional way. Ask why until the root cause is exposed. And then the last one, which is one of my favorite things to do, is create an SBAR. This goes over the situation, the background, the assessment, and then the recommendations, what you as a manager are recommending. If the picture is not clear on what you are supposed to do, whether you're supposed to shred the documents or not shred them, or change the date or not change the date, create an SBAR. Let them know, hey, while this affected me, this could also be affecting another manager. So we need to do some education, pull, the compliance team in, have them be able to share the proper policy and procedure. And SBAR is a great tool to help management hone into the true issue and understand the background of asking why. The third question is why you made your decisions and why you didn't choose other alternatives. So as I previously stated, a director once told me, always partner with human resources, even if you think you know the correct answer. While a quote unquote red flag could get raised by submitting the performance evaluation late, you then have the facts and data to back up why you did it the way you did. This is also you showing that you have ethical morals, values, you have an understanding of that and the reasoning behind it. But this just goes the extra mile and shows that you took the quote unquote legal way of doing things and made sure that you asked all the proper channels so you knew you were in the right. If I were to get called in and be investigated, I would have the answers from the research I did to ensure I was following the correct process. Crucial conversations are types of conversations that are learned and can be difficult for some leaders. So while I chose crucial conversations, this is not something that all leaders or managers are going to choose. Crucial conversations, especially as a new leader, are very hard to understand. They're intimidating. And I'll be honest, I still have an issue with crucial conversations, but the one thing that I have learned is that, sometimes you have to let a you problem be a you problem, because it's not a me problem. Like, here's the facts, here's the data behind and supporting the decision as to why I was not okay changing that date and shredding those documents. The last question we were asked is, what is your next course of action? Actually, this is the third question. What is your next course of action? Which other factors do you consider, and which other actions do you take? So my next course of action is to dig into our policy and procedures online and see if I find information there. If I do, I can then take it to HR, my supervisor, and or the transferring supervisor. In doing this, I would partner with HR to ensure they are part of the conversation to help guide it in a positive direction. You always want to move that needle forward. You don't want anyone to think when you have those crucial conversations that you're coming to attack them. So collaborating is the best way to do that. I am lucky to work with an organization that has the resources of other managers to gauge their insight on things I am not certain of. As a manager, it is important to understand that while we may be covering different employees, we are all in our role for the same reason. If I were to find a different policy and workflow that was put in place, I would then share with other managers within my organization. So you really want to do your research on it. You want to hone into the resources that you have. Collaborate with those other managers, even if they're not directly involved. They might have some insight, or they may have, you don't have to share the employee's name. You just share the scenario, and they may have had a similar situation and can direct you on the right path. And then I would finish up by talking to my supervisor. I would talk to my supervisor before I talk to the transferring supervisor and just say, hey, I appreciate your feedback, your insight. This is what I ended up doing with this employee. I partnered with the ACC and HR, and they were part of the conversation with the employee that transferred, and we've got it all settled. So next steps is just collaborate and share the correct policy, whether I think that I know it or my supervisor said it right. It's okay to not have all the answers in healthcare, and it's okay to say, all right, thank you for the insight. I don't know the full situation, so I want to research this before I jump in and make any irrational decisions. And this is the last question. So, which ethical framework or distributive justice theory best supports your decisions? Explain why. So, the ethical framework that I actually used for this case study is the IDEA framework. So, you start with identify. You identify the problem, you determine, you then explorate, meaning you explore the different things. In my case, I explored the different research, I collaborated with everyone, and then you anticipated. You prepare for that conversation with whoever is part of the scenario or issue. So I believe the ethical framework that best supports my decision is, as I stated, the IDEA ethical framework. I use this framework because it is not for me to say, I am right and you are wrong. I used it to ensure I identified the problem, determine the best course to handle the situation, evaluate the proper process, and share that with the rest of the organization, and then anticipate what steps need to be taken to ensure the proper supervision is completing, or the proper supervisor is completing the performance evaluation. This type of framework, once your data is gathered, it's very black and white. What is right, and what is wrong in the world as it pertains to legality. We are all leaders doing our best every day, collaborating and sharing ideas and trying to make healthcare organizations a better place. I personally like this type of framework. It pulls everything in, and as I've stated, throughout, I think each one of my slides, it's important to identify that problem, determine, the steps moving forward. This could come to light that we have a workflow issue, or we have a policy issue, or the policy states one thing and the supervisors are doing another thing. And so it can really just tighten up those workflows and make sure that everything is standardized across the board when it comes to specific issues, whether you're in the right or you're in the wrong. I truly enjoyed working on this case study. I've had to deal with some issues over the past few months that are not easy, and collaboration, teamwork, knowing my ethics, my values, morals, and the legality as it pertains to healthcare organizations is crucial when it comes to making sure that we're following the correct policy and procedure that is put in place by our organization. So thank you.